Well, I realized the whole time, yet again, I had my microphone off, so I will have typed some instructions to you at the beginning of this video. Sorry about that, you guys. Anyway, I've put on my first 5 wraps of 22 gauge half round, and as I said with the previous one, I'll use about 5 inches of 22 gauge half round gold fill wire. I'm going to turn my frame upside down so that I can continue to wrap with my strong right hand. I'll just straighten the half round out. The flat side is underneath and inside the bend, and I'll just come right over here against my center mark. I'll hold on to that little beginning fragment so the wire doesn't travel while I wrap, and I'll make 5 nice tight wraps on this side of the frame. After 3 of them, I'll grab the beginning fragment and just go out and back in. Corrects that little bubble at the top of the first loop or the first wrap. Then I'll just finish by making 2 more. Nice and tight so that my wraps are even, but not so tight that these 4 wires crush up against themselves. We want them nice and side by side. And I'll turn it over to what I'm calling the inside of the frame. Since this is the side we're making cuts on, this is the side that will go up against the stone. So all of our cuts will live on this side, and my cuts are long enough that they're living in the center of these 4 wires, not so long that they're falling off of this side, and not so short that they're falling off. Okay, so just like that. Keep them side by side. If you need to get a plier and do a gentle squeeze, you can do that. Just be very controlled, and that's looking lovely. So now right here, I'm going to go ahead and use my flat nose pliers. I'm going to grip right here against the last band, making sure I'm flush with the top. I'll just take my thumb and I'm going to push to a nice 90 degrees. Okay, so that that little part is in the center of my wire. I intend for my opal to have a little, my frame for my opal to have a little point at the bottom, so it'll kind of be like that when it's done. I might just go a little bit more than 90 degrees. The sharper the bend, then the more point you get. I want it to be just a little bit more. So I'll bring it up. What I'm looking for is that the ends of these 2 wraps stay nice and even. And I think I like that a little bit better. And get my opal centered on my board. Get that point centered on my board, and see that my 2 wires are exiting in the same place, and that they cross these T lines in the same place, and that looks pretty good. So I like this. I'm going to go ahead and work it like this. I'm going to go ahead and put another set of wraps right here at the shoulders of the opal. So right about here at the 1/4 inch mark of my wire, if you're looking from here to here. And I'm just going to use the 2.5 inch scraps that I have from the last 5 inches that I took. You can get fresh wire if you want. I just straightened it out. I made another hook. I'm just going to eyeball this. And I'm only going to put 3 little wraps here. I'll make them in the same way as my first ones. I'll take my plier. Better refocus this. There you go. Take my plier, give it a little pinch, pull out the leading tail and pull it back in to tighten that one up. I'm not pinching it too hard because I want it to slide a little bit for me in case I need to move it a little bit. It's kind of my way to cheat a little bit. And I'm going to make my snips on the inside. Pinch my 2 cuts down. And I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. I'm going to just use the little bit of half round I had from my original length, the scrap, so that I don't waste it. And I'm just going to do another 3 wraps right here. Use my plier, pull the first one forward and back to straighten it out. Give a little pinch. Then I'll cut the insides off. Give a small tap and set those down. It's fairly even, but I can make it a little more even once I take it around the stone. So I'll go ahead and line everything up. I like to put my tape flaps up. Doesn't get in my way. I have flashed this opal to see which way it's brightest, and it's pretty good on both directions. There is one favored direction. So with flashy stones I kind of do that. I flash them a little bit to know which side is the top side. And I'll hold everything down, and with my 2 fingers I'll just bring my wires together, keep everything centered the best that I can. And I'm just going to take one wire at a time, one band of wires at a time. I'm going to cross them over each other. I don't want it to come to the complete head of the opal. I want there to be a little bit of a gap right here, about 4 or 5 millimeters. Once I get that, I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and I'm going to turn. Hold everything as steady as you can and go ahead and turn the wires back to vertical. The one on top might be a little more difficult. Once you get them, just use your plier, squeeze them together, push them down to the mat. Make sure that you're as even as you can be. That's pretty good. It's pretty center to the top. It's quite centered to the bottom. I'm going to push my 2 little wraps up slightly. Now that I have my bends there, they should move for you quite well. Just push them up here to the top, right next to your bail wires. Try to get them even. Whoop. When you get them living where you want them to, it's about right here is good. I'm going to go ahead and pinch them down pretty good with my plier to either side, to each side. And the opal fits pretty well. Okay, so now I'm going to turn to the back. My flaps are going to be considered the top side of my pendant. So I'll just turn it back here. I'm going to make a little seat for my opal. I'm going to put my flat nose plier just on the very last wire, last square wire. Put your finger here in the middle. Just give a nice turn to the inside. Do the same on the opposite side. Hold it in such a way that you're comfortable. I like to turn my pendant over so that I can use my strong hand and I can see what I'm doing. And that's pretty good. Slip the opal back in there. And that should make a nice clean seat for the back. We're going to do the same to the front. There's a little more dome here on the front, so you're going to have to give it just a slight bit more when you pull forward. I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of tape around both of these bundles of wire at the top just to help me hold on to them a little bit. So I have a third piece of tape here. I'm going to go ahead and just bundle the whole thing together. Keep your flaps on top. That's pretty good. You can make sure that these two bands are ready and are living where you want them to. I'm going to slip my finger slightly into the first wire and separate it from the rest of them. Do the same on this side. Just slip your fingernail in there. Make a nice groove. The wires are taped, but they're still loose enough that they're going to give you some length. So you just want to part these so that you can get a plier in there. I'm going to take my same flat nose pliers. I'm going to come down here and slip into this little groove. You notice my plier doesn't go all the way down because of the banding here. So you can be really careful and use your finger to pull it out slightly more. You can be 1 millimeter out. Just make note for the other side. Hold on to the curve and your opal, and then make a nice firm left hand turn and draw that wire onto the belly of the opal. Push down slightly and that should be a nice grab right there. We'll make some adjustments once we get the other side up. Do the same on this side. You're going to snuggle your finger in there until you can get it up far enough to get your plier in there. You'll get your flat nose plier in there with a firm grip. Take it on its square. If you were 1 millimeter off the bands on the other side, make sure you're 1 millimeter off the bands on this side. Don't slip like I did just then. I'll go this way so you can see it. I'm going to grip my wire. I'm going to hold on to the belly of my opal here with my thumb. I'm just going to turn the wire in and onto the belly. Make it as even as you can with the other side. This is a pretty small opal, so this single turn is enough. If it were a bigger opal, I might also turn the top sides in, but since I'll drop some design down a little bit, I won't bother with doing that here. And I'm just going to take my plier, pinch all of this together. There is probably a 2 or 3 millimeter little gap right there on the top, and the same here on the bottom. So that's pretty good for the capture. And then here on the sides you have 2 bands. I like to always just raise the one slightly and separate them just with my finger. Gives a little more coverage, opens it up a little bit. You don't have to do this. Okay, and there you go. You could do a double design by taking the second one and also bending it forward, or you can leave them straight, whichever you prefer, to show more of your opal. And actually, because these wires are small enough, it'll give enough light either way. I do this more just for a little symmetry. Okay, so that's the basic capture. You can do this with copper, you can do this with any stone, and you can do this in sterling silver as well. It'll make a beautiful little pendant. You can also use stones a little bit bigger than this. 10 inches, you could probably go to a whole inch, and maybe an inch in width as well. And the stone depth is about 5 millimeters from the top of the belly to the bottom of the stone. Alright, so after we capture the stone, we're going to go ahead and get a fresh piece of 22 gauge half round wire. I like to take 16 inches. I'm just going to rub my finger over it, make sure it's straight, make sure the flat side is down. I'm going to bend the first 2 inches of the top, and I'm going to make it slant slightly to my right. I'll go ahead and take the neck of my pendant now, and I'll slip this wire entirely over the both bundles of wire. I'm going to take the short side, I'll just hold the long side underneath my thumb, and I'll make sure the flat side is against the frame, and I'll make about 5 wraps right here, moving toward the opal. 4 and 5. Pull this first one out slightly and back in, and then just push the whole thing gently down to the neck of the pendant. You might have to use your plier a little bit. Give it very light taps, and then just push it down. Take the first one, pull out slightly, straighten it up. Take the one that you're wrapping. Maybe you go around 6 times. If you need to get one more, I might do that. And make sure that the end of it is pointing towards the back of the stone. Give a tap with your plier. Make sure it's laying down nice, and then go ahead and cut it off so that the cut is moving towards the back of the stone. Go ahead and tap it all down so that these two sides are even with each other. And that's pretty good there. Alright, so now we can go ahead and release all the tape. Peel my upper one off first because it's holding them both together. Separate the two halves here. Just hang on to the neck a little bit. Make sure it stays put. And gently take your tape off so that you don't wreck these wires up here. They're nice and straight. And now our half round is up here at the front. If anything shifted while you took the tape off, just correct it. We're going to pull the front 2 wires out. I'm looking at the front of my pendant. I'm going to take these 2 front wires. I'm going to pull them out slightly into 90 degree. And with the remaining wires, I'll put my plier right here at the base of these wraps. Tap them if you need to. I need to tap mine a little bit. Right here at the top of the bands. And go ahead and separate these bundles. 3 to the one side, and 3 to the other side. So you're basically making a little T-bar with these, and you have your 2 upper wires for the frame, for the bail I mean. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go around to the back side. Make the jump from the back side onto the front of these wires. Just make sure your half round stays with the flat side against the frame. Sometimes I use my pliers to help me get started. You'll just go around and wrap these 2 wires for your bail. I like to use a bail that is about 1.25 inches long. It gives me, once I bend it over, it gives me about a half an inch bail. You can use, 1 inch or whatever you prefer. Just go ahead and wrap your half round And I might stop at an inch actually, since this is such a small little opal. For larger stones, I might make a bail that's 1.25 inches long. You're working to keep the half round, flat side of the half round against your frame wires. And you're working to keep these 2 square wires side by side as you wrap. About every 4 or 5 wraps, I like to tap with my plier, keep everything under control, keep these wraps side by side so that they don't overlap the previous one. And certainly you can do this in several ways. You know, we see people turn the pendant and kind of twirl this around, and you can do it that way too. I'm kind of old school. I work a little slower, so I just do this overhand and underhand. I make my taps as I go. You're working to keep this bail wire straight as well, this bail straight. Don't let it bend up on you while you're wrapping. Oop. And that looks pretty good. I think I've wrapped about 1 inch. I might go a few more. And you should have 3 or 4 inches left of your half round once this is wrapped. And so now with the bail wires wrapped, I'm going to go ahead and push the bail wires forward slightly so they're at a slight angle. I'll take a dowel. You can use a half round, you can use a big pen, you can use any round dowel that's about 3 to 4 millimeters, depending on how wide you want your bail. You can also just turn it over with your fingers. So if I have a dowel, I might set it right here at the middle of these wraps to help me make these bends. Your round nose plier would work also. If I didn't have a dowel, I would just use my fingers, the edge of my thumb, and make this bend. Bring these wires straight down the back, pinch them in slightly here at the neck. Your wrap, the end of your wrap should meet at the neck wraps right here. That gives you a nice big bail, gives you about 1/2 inch, and this diameter bail should fit most chains, rope, leather, whatever you want to put in there. So I'll make sure it's all nice and even. I'll hold everything steady, and then I'll use the remaining portion of my half round and I'll wrap all of it together, starting from the top of these wraps and working down right underneath each other. Keep it neat and work to keep the flat side of the half round against the neck of your pendant. After a few of them, you can take your flat nose pliers and just do a little tap, make sure it's all together. I like to hold it with my flat nose as it gets short. Makes it a little bit easier. And I have enough here that I'm going to wrap all the way down and just recover the wraps that I had underneath. Makes a nice substantial neck. When I get just a couple of, maybe a half an inch there, tap everything tight. You can leave yourself more than a half an inch if you want. I'll raise these two back wires, and keeping the flat side against the frame, I'll go ahead and tie this wire off by coming around these two back ones here a couple of times. So you can give yourself a little more than this half an inch. I'm just working very close because I'm working in gold fill. So I'm going to snip, giving myself just a couple of millimeters, enough to turn that edge down and pinch it underneath there. Nice and tidy. You'll lay these two wires back down the back of your opal there, and those cuts will be invisible. So now you have a basic capture all the way through to bail. And now with these wires you can do some design here on the front. You have two wires in the back if you want to add to the design, or you can just cut them off right here. So we'll tackle that in the next video. Once you have the stone captured in this very beautiful but basic frame, you have a lot of options for design in the remaining wire lengths. So an easy design, I like to keep it with my opals very elegant. Just going to hold everything and push these wires straight up. And I'll do the same on this side. I'm just going to hold everything, push the wires back up. Make sure you stay centered. And take the first two wires here, the first wire, one at a time I should say. And I'm going to just twist it, just turn it right here at the edge of the bail. Get a nice slope going down this way. I'll just chase it with the second one, pull them out slightly just to give it a little bit of a flare. Get underneath it, use the bail, keep things elegant. Just kind of come basically around and follow the first two, or the first one. And then I'll do the same with this last one. Just bring it over the top, just kind of trace the flow of the other wires. So you get this beautiful design. We can alter some of it as we go, just like that. From the opposite side, once I get those top ones done, I'm going to just lower this a little bit. Take the very front one. We're going to skirt it. Just scooch these over a little bit. We're going to skirt it kind of right into here and coming the opposite direction. But we're pretty much going to do the same. One wire at a time. I'll take this first one. I'm holding it down here, bracing it with my thumb, just giving it a little bit of a turn so that it slopes into the neck and then comes back out the side. Okay, give it a little bit of space. Take the second one, can do the same thing. Just bring it slightly above that first one, push it into that little crevice, and turn it out to the side. Just keep them elegant. beautiful, it's clean. And this last one you can use or not, whichever you prefer. If you feel like, you've got enough wire going on there, we can always trim it and just tuck it into that space right there to end it. So I like to leave it up there just to see what I might do. These two wires in the back, if you don't need them, and on this tiny little opal, I really don't need them, but you could, as an option, flare them out. I'll make an example and then I'll cut them off, and give some more design to the body by doing something like that down here, wrapping around there. To just end them, I'll go ahead and just snip them right here, leaving about 1/4 of an inch. You can save these pieces for use. I'll take my round nose plier or a very fine plier and just turn these ends in into a little heart shape right behind the head of your opal. I'm just using my tiny flatheads. I'm working very carefully, just like that. To a very nice, cute termination of those wires right there, like that. Now back here on this side, I'm going to take these two, put my thumb right here, go ahead and just slope them until they come down behind the opal. Just leave a little finesse in it. They don't have to be perfect, just like that. We're going to cut them and feed them back through and give one wrap to tie them off right there. So once you get that curve looking the way you want, and it can just be whimsy like that, I'm going to eyeball a cut and leave about 3/4 of an inch here so that I can make a comfortable wrap but not have to fight too much wire. And I want to bend it right about here. So I'll pull back a little bit, leave my curve looking the way I want it, and I'll just work these tips either one at a time or both, if you can do it, straight into the bottom of the frame. Push carefully. And then take those two wires straight over the side here. Use your plier. Give a very gentle tap. You can end these two wires. Put your thumb right here. Pull down. Pull down. You're going to cut them and let them live just a whisper onto the inside there. Okay, so I like to take them like this. I look at the front. I make sure that I've tapped them here to get them fairly tight. And then I'll go ahead and make a very slight cut right there, leaving just a tiny amount, enough to hook over that edge, but not so much as to create bulk. Use your plier. Just get that turned slightly over that edge till you don't feel it, but until it's hooked over. That's pretty good there. And now with this side you have 3 wires. You can use the one in the middle and create a little curly design here. Put your thumb right here. Take this, start a little pre-bend up the opal. I like it about there. Cut it. That's probably a total of 3/4 of an inch. Just cut yours where you feel like you like it. I'm going to get my round nose plier. I'm going to grip the very tip of this wire. I'm going to hold on to my curve so nothing moves. And I'm going to curl into the center. Just like that. That's pretty good. If you munch out the tip of it, like I did a little bit here, you can cheat a little bit, get a very narrow, sharp tipped cutter, and just take a little snip there and clean that up. And that looks very nice. And then these two, you can kind of slope them down and make them similar to the other side. They don't have to be symmetrical, but they can flow in the same way. So I'll just get them both, make a little turn right here, slope them around to the back like that. That's beautiful. It's elegant. And the same, I'm going to make them come around, dive in there and come over the top. So I'll give myself about a 1/2 inch here, maybe 3/4 of an inch from here. I like the way that's sloping. I'll pull it out a little bit, turn the ends of these in a little bit. Use the plier to help you if you need, and you can work them one at a time or 2 at a time. Just work gently, patiently, push a little, pull a little. Keep your finger on the belly of your stone. When you get close, make sure to push from the back and lay those wires down so you can see, the curve here, what you like. I like it like that. Looks pretty good. So bend these 2 wires back through. Make sure everything looks nice and clean. Before you lock them down, make sure that you've got what you want here for a curve. You can push them back out a little bit so long as you don't make that bend entirely tight. So when you love it, then you can take these wires here, make sure nothing moves. I'm going to do a little tap. Just help bring these wires to the back a little bit without pulling any more out of your curve. Tap them back. And then do the best you can to snip them and tuck them into that tiny little space, just enough to hook in there. So I left a couple of millimeter there. Make sure that you can hook them in there though. You can do it one at a time. This is probably the toughest part of your day right here. So I just turn it down and push it in from the top. Get the very tip of it, turn it down, push it in from the top. And do the best you can to pinch it tight without scuffing up your wire. So that's pretty good there. This one's probably a little bit shorter than I want it to be. Let me get a real close-up for you. So it should look like these two here. Just make it just barely hook in. This third one over here looks good. This one back here. But this one up front right here is a little bit short. It'll probably stay, but I'm probably going to try to whittle it in just a little bit more. So you're looking for a true bend and a true hook into that little crevice without causing too much bulk, okay? So I'll work on mine. It'll probably stay, but just so you know. And then of course you want it to be attractive and not too bulky up here. Make sure that you're pinching with some narrow pliers. To guide those to the back. That looks pretty good. It's not too bulky right there. With this one, if you don't like it, you can snip it or don't need it, and you can just turn it down. You know, the other thing you can do with it, of course, is always to add some additional design to either side. I could whip it around to this side here, bring it down and across, bring it up, and fill in this little space right here with some additional curly. So maybe I'll do that. Snip it off right there. Leave myself about 1/4 of an inch. Get my round nose plier on it. Hold everything in place. Just turn a little curl into that spot right there. And I'll have to tie that together, but that adds a little something to that little crevice right there, and I love that. It's pretty clean. All right, you guys, I hope you loved that. I'm gonna get some wires and tie this up, maybe add a cute bead ball to that and flare these out a little bit, and then we'll clean it all up, finish it up. Just gonna make sure that lays down nice and clean. I'm going to take my very narrow pliers and gently from the back, I'm going to turn some of this elegance out. Work it from the back very carefully and lightly. Just adds tiny little turns to it. Gives a little elegance. Makes a big difference, just that little bit of turn. Just work yours until you love it. Like that. Now on this side I'll do the same, just kind of part these two before I get my pliers all in there. The pliers aren't going to fit. That looks pretty good. So if I need to, get the plier on it back here on the back. Turn it out slightly. Turn it out slightly. To add a little more elegance to the top there. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now we'll get some small wire and we'll start tying some of this together. Real careful. If you need to pinch them a little more closely, you can do that right there. That looks pretty great. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to tie a little ball right there, a little bead ball, and I'm going to use 22 gauge half round. You could also use 28 gauge round. You can use 26 gauge round. And I'm going to try to use the same wire to stitch 1 or 2 stitches across here to hold these things together as well. You could weave if you want to, but if the wires are, left just as is, chances are high they will pull out in time. So I like to secure them. I don't like to put too much extra, so I think I can do it with 1 wire across here, catch the bead, make a wrap, and be done. So I'm going to try that. I've got about 6 inches of 22 gauge half. I'm going to get a tiny little gold bead ball. Okay, so I've slipped my bead ball onto the wire, onto the half round with the flat side facing me. I'm going to come through. It's a little bit tricky to do the one side, right? And then the other side has to come through in this other direction with the flat side facing you. So I've got a long bend on it. I'm keeping the flat side facing me. I'm coming through the frame. Do the best you can. Don't pull things out of whack. Keep the flat side facing you. That's not too bad there. Just work patiently until you get it in there. If you use 26 or 28 gauge, it'll be a little easier because it's just round and there's nothing to contend with. So then I'm going to make one wrap. I've got these 2 frame wires right here. I'm going to get it close. Then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to go back and forth and pull until it tightens up, just like that. And I'm only going to make one stitch. I'm going to go up slightly. I'm only going to make that one stitch on those 2. I'm going to come back here, kind of the same thing. I'm going to try to keep my half round going in the same direction. I could probably shorten it. Do a little better job than I just did. One stitch around this guy here. I am kind of working at an odd angle, so I'm going to get one more stitch through here. Just going to get it as close as I can. Just get a nice wrap. If you want for texture, you can do a couple of more wraps. Work until you have a nice decorative wrap that secures the wires together, but that doesn't interfere with your design. So I'm just going to go ahead now and make a few more single wraps just for the fun of it. Gently tapping everything to make sure it's all living nice and close. And then I'll take this side, make sure the bead is landed and that the wire is tight. And then I'm just going to make one decorative wrap that secures both of these together and ties my bead on right through there. Hold on to the bead, pull your wire through. That's about all you would need there. It doesn't look balanced, so I'm probably going to go through twice just to make it look a little more balanced to the other side. And if I don't like this all together, I can always remove it and use 28 or 26 gauge. Tie my bead ball back on. I actually like that all right. It's pretty good. Okay, so just work yours until you love it. I think I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and cut this over here. Take the little end of that, turn it back, get on top of it, and wrap it around. Tuck it away right there. Make sure to tap things so that they're secure. Readjust things if they shift. And on this side right here, make sure that it's nice and secure. Give it a little tap. And I'm actually just going to cut it way back here behind that ear. Right here. Tap them and it won't go anywhere. Nice clean back. Beautiful front. And now I'm going to give everything a polish. And then it'll be ready to sew. I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back in a couple minutes with a beautiful clean pendant. So I decided I was going to tighten this up a little bit. Put your plier right here on the neck and push right here. Pinch that together a little bit more. Snug it up if it needs to be. Just make small, gentle tweaks all around your piece to make sure that things are tight. Make sure that things are elegant. Do a final inspection, maybe a little sanding. This little thing right here, that'll come out during polishing. I'm not going to bother to sand that. If it were a big scuff, I would. But that's enough that it's so tiny it'll just come out during polishing. The little bit of half round is showing right here. So I might just use the edge of my plier, give a little push and a nudge. Make sure that it looks even. Now it looks pretty good. Make sure that this little guy is secure. It's not going anywhere. The hooked end of that is inside. I've got plenty of room for a chain to come through this part of the bail and not through my design. So I'm happy with that. If I needed to do any scooching here, or if you do, you can get your pliers in here and kind of scooch forward some of it. If you need to harden it, you can use your round nose plier like a burnisher if you don't have a burnisher, and just do a little bit of scraping, just gentle rubbing. Not to change design, but just to harden these curves up a little bit of burnishing. Burnishing means just to rub this metal against metal. Compresses all the little molecules, I think are what they're called, and makes the metal a little harder. So sometimes without using any kind of hammering, you can just do this and harden places up that might need it, such as these curves. Use your round nose plier. They're clean. They won't leave scratches. You know, stay on the rounded part of the metal. Don't go down here in case you scratch. But you can see the metal shining up just a little bit. So I'm having an effect on it. You'll feel that that's a lot harder. So I'll just go through here and burnish a little bit. If you have a burnishing tool, you can use that. But otherwise, round nose pliers work really good. All right, members, so this is a very nice Ethiopian opal pendant that you have now in a very clean and simple design. And to change it, all you'd have to do is like weave these wires, or you could wrap them all the way down, you know, change the curls a little bit here and there. But you could wrap a lot of small pendants like this. They're beautiful and they're good for Christmas time. They're elegant and they will sell. So now I'm going to go to my polisher. I'm going to protect my opal by slipping some paper in between the wire and the opal, and then I'm going to give this a nice polish. So I work the paper kind of carefully in, getting it as much as I can, protecting the opal as much as I can. Then I'm going to take it to the Dremel, polish it out as the best that I can, and then hand polish the rest of it. So down here, I definitely want to get the Dremel on it, get the Dremel on the majority of this. You know, these little wires here, I could hand polish because they're directly up against my opal. So anyway, you can make your choices there, but I'm going to go ahead and shine this up now. All right, so here is this finished beauty. I've taken this under the Dremel and I've polished it out with Fabuluster and a cotton wheel. It leaves a residue. See all the black hands? Well, I've washed them, but you see all that? So it's easily washed off with mild dish soap and a toothbrush. I have some underneath there that I gotta get clean. And make sure, you know, I put mild soap, dish soap, and then I use my toothbrush, my soft bristled toothbrush, and I scrub out all the wires. These Willow opals can take that. You don't want to soak them in water, but they can take a quick cleaning. So I'm probably going to clean it again because I see that I have, you know, some more underneath here. So I'll take my toothbrush to it and make sure I get all of the compound, the polishing compound off of my opal. And then you want to make sure to dry it right away also. We don't ever leave our jewelry sitting in the water. And these opals may get a little bit cloudy when they get wet. When they dry out, they'll clear back up again. But like I said, you definitely want to do the homework on your precious gems. I'm not a mineral expert. I just have passing on knowledge that I've learned. So they're a little bit more durable than you think, but you still want to approach it carefully. I wash them quickly, efficiently. I dry them off quickly. I make sure to shake them out if I have weave in them to get water out of the crevices and such. And then I inspect it with a magnifier or this camera on very high zoom to make sure that I have all of the polishing agent out of the wires. And this is pretty clean. My final step is going to be to take a bit of sunshine cloth, which is this yellow polishing cloth that I've talked about in the past, and I'm going to rub out maybe these top wires and give everything a once over to make sure that it's clean. After that, I'll give one more nice wipe to get the dust of this cloth off the wires and off of the opal, and then it'll be ready for sale. So that's the whole thing, you guys. It's quite a bit, but this is a very basic 101 wrap, and we'll do that this weekend in live stream. But my point of showing it to you in gold fill wire with an opal is that a 101 wrap can be very elegant. It isn't just beginner style. If you're brave enough to go ahead and step the material up into something like this and practice this very basic wrap over and over in copper until you feel comfortable, then you go here and you can still make a very nice high-grade pendant from a very basic, what we would consider a beginner style wrap. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. This is beautiful, it's elegant, it's clean, and I'm going to have it in my shop and available for about $280. And so if you're interested, you let me know. Otherwise, make yourself one or make one for your stores. Okay? Enjoy. Much love. We'll see you for the next one.